Hello and welcome to another episode of the For the Property Investor podcast. And we're here with the weekly news. The only man that brings us that news is, of course, Nick Bendel. Welcome, Nick.
Well, thank you for having me, Owen. Great to see you again.
Of course. Great to see you as well. And what's
I'm
been
back
happening in your week?
I'm back in the usual location. I spent the past 2 weeks on Norfolk Island, and now I'm back in Sydney.
I still haven't seen any photographic evidence that you're in Norfolk Island. It just all I could see was a fridge behind you. Are we going to see some photos?
Well, it sounds like you're not following me on Instagram. That's what I'm hearing there.
Oh, right. Okay. It's Instagram. Sorry. I'm an avid follower on LinkedIn. I thought you might do how to work from Norfolk Island post on LinkedIn.
No, I never got around to that. Maybe because I was too busy working on Norfolk Island to find time to write about how to work on Norfolk Island.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'll look it up on Insta, as the young ones call it.
Okay. Well,
Sure.
Now,
And that
apart
just
from
aged
that,
me about 20 years as well, saying that.
possibly, as long as you don't call it the Facebook, then there is still some hope.
Yes, very true, very true. So apart from coming back from Norfolk Island, how else has your week been?
Well, my week has been really good. I own a business called Hunter and Scribe, which is a copywriting agency that writes content for finance and property professionals. And one of the things we're really good at is award submissions. Seven of our clients last year were nominated as finalists. So since we last spoke, Owen, we started working on an award submission for a building surveyor, and we're about to start another award submission for a residential builder.
Nice, cool, and I'm sure you'll win as you did last year.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But if we do win, it will be because of the client.
Of course. Give credit where it's due. Yes.
They, this particular building surveyor, they have created a really good company and gave incredible service to their client. So I do hope they win.
Great. Good to hear. We've had a busy week as well here at Leifield. Of course, we're a property management business that operates across 5 states and over 300 suburbs. And we've just expanded the team with another property manager who acts like whose actual title is portfolio manager, and they're in a position that works like air traffic control. Their job is to talk to the owner, talk to the tenant, talk to our any trades that need to go out to the property, but they also are the ones that talk to our ground crew and organise all of the inspections are done, and then the ground crew report back to that portfolio manager. So it's good to have an extra one starting now, and so we can prepare for the extra growth throughout this year that we're expecting.
Well, very exciting. I've enjoyed following Leifield's journey over the past few years as you've expanded into more states and taken on more managements and more staff, and it sounds like the company's going to keep growing.
Yes, getting there. It's whenever you've got a growing business, there's always some growing pains. And yes, hopefully this lot of growing pains is behind us pretty much now, and we can keep moving forward with the good parts of the growth.
Well, shall we move into the news, see what stories we've got?
Yes. Nick, bring us the news. What's in the news this week?
Well, our first story is a rather familiar one. Major shortfall in housing supply predicted. The federal government is aiming to facilitate the building of 1.2 million new homes in the 5 years to June 2029. However, a new report from the Property Council of Australia says we're on track to build only 738,000 homes, which would mean we would fall 39% or 462,000 homes short of the target. Property Council Chief Executive Mike Zorbas said the government should double the new homes bonus, which is a payment to states that outperform their targets and undertake reform to boost housing supply and improve housing affordability. Owen, are you surprised that we're likely to fall well short of achieving the government's target?
No, let me think about that one, Nick. It's no, not at all. It's yes, it was an ambitious target, which it needed to be, regardless. But yes, it was never going to get there because there are just underlying issues within the macro economy that is just preventing all of this from happening. And mainly with an undersupply of trades, rising costs of materials, and all of the government red tape, which is mainly what this one is aimed at fixing. So yes, it's an improvement, but yes, well short of the target.
Well, speaking of the target, so sometimes when people talk about the target or report the target, they incorrectly report that the federal government is looking to build 1.2 million homes in the 5 years to June 2029. What they're looking to do is facilitate the building of 1.2 million new homes. The federal government is building, I think, maybe 10,000 or 20,000 of those 1.2 million. So they're basically building none of them. They're trying to create conditions that incentivize others to build those homes. And one of the ways they're trying to do that is they're trying to incentivize the states to create favorable conditions. And one of the ways they're trying to do that is by having this new homes bonus, which is just money that gets paid to states that exceed their targets. So the Property Council is saying that one way to increase the number of new homes that are being built is to double the incentive payments to states. Do you think that will solve the problem?
No, I mean, the relationship between the states and the federal government, it's yes, the states just act like teenagers, where it's just like, oh, we need to go out, mum and dad. Yeah, can I have some more money? It's just like, no, I gave you some last week. It's just like, use that. It's like, oh, I've already spent that. Need more. It's just like, seriously, it's just like, if the states can't fix the problem off their own back, it's then they're just going to sit back and wait for the federal government to hand out more money to them. I mean, why do we even have the states? I mean, they're redundant, really. But that's a whole nother topic.
Okay, so you're not keen on states and you're not keen on children. We've learned a lot about you in the past 60 seconds. In a free market, Owen, capitalists respond to an undersupply of a product or service by creating more of that thing because there are financial incentives to do so. However, and this is probably the crucial point, housing is not a free market because developers face many restrictions about what, where, and how they can build. So do we need to loosen the rules around development?
Well, there's good reason why there are rules around development. From a safety of building codes, and to make sure the buildings don't fall down or catch on fire. All those important things. And then there's then there's urban planning and all these other things that go into it too. But the federal and state and local government, all levels of government, have been doing this for a very long time, and it hasn't happened by accident that we've now got this huge undersupply. and this much higher demand. So it's the one lever that the federal government, shouldn't have pulled to make the matter worse was the immigration issue, creating the more demand for housing. So, but that argument's, well, that story's been done to death already, and they've apparently reduced the amount of immigration, so that's fine. But the long-term supply issue doesn't get fixed quickly. So we need to fix the labour shortage, which will take probably more immigration, but the right type of immigration. We need to fix the red tape on all levels of government. It's not just state or federal, but it's local as well. And it's we know they're trying, but it just doesn't happen fast enough. So and then there's the issue of the rising cost of building materials. So we've got the issue where to make it worthwhile for developers and builders to take the risk to go out there and build more properties, we actually need the underlying value of properties to increase to be able to cover the cost of actually building. So but everyone in this debate and in this conversation says that we want to limit the growth of prices to make it more affordable. So it's a difficult problem to fix.
Well, we've been talking about the government's target of 1.2 million homes for more than a year now. It's occurred to me that if the government loses the next election and Dutton scraps the target, we're not going to have anything to talk about.
I'm sure there will be. There'll be other problems. There's always problems to talk about, Nick.
Okay, well, on that cheery note, let's move on to our second story for today. Unemployment rate steady. The unemployment rate held at 4.1% in February, but the labour market softened with 52,800 jobs lost, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. A fall in workforce participation from 67.3% in January to 66.8% in February helped keep unemployment steady. Despite February's job losses, there are 266,000 more people in jobs than a year ago. Looking ahead, the Reserve Bank expects the unemployment rate to edge up slightly to 4.2% by mid-year. Owen, we're currently experiencing quite a bit of turmoil due to Trump's tariffs, the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East. Do you think that will cause our economy to slow and unemployment to rise?
That's a very big question, Nick. It's all these things, and I don't think anyone has the answer to that. That's a wait and see. What we do know is that the issue of unemployment, especially around participation in the workforce, that's my biggest concern out of this story is the participation rate. It's have people just given up working, and does that really show that the unemployment rate should be actually higher because people have just given up to do something else? So
now,
that's it.
just to apologies for interrupting. For those who don't know, someone is counted as unemployed only if they're actually looking for a job, and that's what the participation rate covers. The participation rate covers a percentage of working age people who either have a job or who are actively looking for a job, and that's why, even though quite a few jobs were lost between January and February, the unemployment rate didn't go up because the number of people in the workforce also went down. And so you've raised a concern about why there was a significant number of people who left the workforce. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is because people aren't getting the number of hours they want, or they're not getting the kind of job they want, and so they're giving up and leaving the workforce.
Yes, and a lot of these things can be either seasonal or they're taking up studies or whatever it might be. But if there really is a cost of living crisis out there, and these people need to earn income, obviously, it's where are they earning the income from, and how is the government not counting these people? And so it would be interesting to see what category are they put under, um, uh, apart from just not participating anymore.
Well, I like to ask you the hard questions because you get paid the big bucks, and that's why. So here's a hard one for you now. If there was higher unemployment, that would probably lead to lower inflation and therefore lower interest rates. So should we be hoping for higher unemployment?
Well, no one wishes for higher unemployment, because we everyone who wants a job needs it for a particular reason, and especially with cost of living increases, there's a lot of people who do need their job. So if we're needing to have lower interest rates, yes, the higher unemployment can lead to lower interest rates, but if we look at the historical figures of interest rates, we haven't got high interest rates at the moment. A lot of people got used to much lower interest rates, which were historic lows. They'd never been that low before. And so they're in a position where, yes, they're hurting because 5 years ago or 4 years ago, they had interest rates that were very low. And moving on from that, to be able to wish for higher unemployment just to get lower interest rates, it's not a good reason to get lower interest rates.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. I know that Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton are keen listeners of this podcast. What can the next Prime Minister do to ensure that unemployment stays lower over the long term?
The best thing we can do to ensure low unemployment is to have a well-run economy. And if the economy is working well, then people can look after themselves. So if we've got stable inflation, if we've got stable interest rates, all of those things will lead to a healthy economy, which means that we don't need huge government intervention. At the moment, we've got so much infrastructure spending happening at the moment that it's sucking a lot of the trades out of the private sector, private sector spending. So a lot of them are going towards these big budget infrastructure spends, and so that's one reason why we're struggling to build the houses we need to, because there's not enough trades. And if you're a tradesperson and you can get a steady job for the next 3 years working on a a big budget infrastructure spend, then why wouldn't you do that? Then go to a job where for the next 4 months you're building a house, and then what's your job after that? So it's a difficult job for the next government to be able to keep everything on track. And yes, we'll wait and see. It's the governments are wanting to keep the economy ticking over, and the best lever they have is to spend the taxpayers' money.
Well, you've solved our housing construction and unemployment problems in the first two stories. For our final story, I've got a rental problem I'd like you to solve. Rental market in crisis, says Housing Lobby Group. Rental stress is affecting significant numbers of middle-income Australians, according to a report by Everybody's Home, which is a coalition of housing, homelessness and welfare organisations. Renters who earn $100,000 per year would need to spend 48% of their income to afford the average rental property in Sydney, 43% in Perth, 40% in Brisbane, 39% in Canberra, 38% in Melbourne, 35% in Adelaide, 34% in Darwin, and 32% in Hobart. This report exposes a stark reality facing Australian renters every day. Rental stress is no longer confined to those on lower incomes. It's affecting professionals, essential workers, and middle-income families who simply can't keep up with soaring rents, Everybody's Home said. This crisis is stopping people from being able to live and work in their communities, leading people to delay major life choices and threatening social cohesion. A $100,000 salary used to be considered a secure income, but our research shows people on this wage are struggling in both cities and regional areas because rents are so staggeringly high. Okay, Owen, so Everybody's Home says the rental market is, quote, in crisis. Is that an accurate description or an exaggeration?
It's not inaccurate, but it's also a bit of an exaggeration. So sorry for having a foot in each camp there, Nick, but it's the market is the market, and it's some of the government intervention in terms of limiting increases has worked in some areas, but it was probably too little too late. And which government intervention usually is anyway, and then you get stuck with it, and can't, and you can never go backwards. But I mean, $100,000 in Sydney isn't a lot of money to earn in Sydney, so that's probably not an accurate description of the average person in Sydney. So if you're only earning $100,000 in Sydney, then you're probably not living in Sydney, and it's that's and you could be, but you're sharing the cost of housing with other people that you're living with. That's just the stark reality of it. And whether you're a dual income family, whether you're in a share position, and or whether you've got whether you're living further away, outside of away from the Sydney centre, and commuting for work and that type of thing. So, but we are seeing a lot of geographical movement, even though we saw a lot of it during the first couple of years of COVID. Through our business, we still see it where there is a lot of movement to different regional areas from the capital cities, where people who can work remotely are. And then there's people who are moving to regional areas for specific jobs, but their spouses might be getting jobs that are are remote jobs, working remote jobs. So there's a lot of change still happening as a result of COVID changing the way we work. And yes, there's still a lot of settling of that, but that's changing the way people live and people rent and the way they pay for housing. So there's a lot more of the rent investors who are choosing to rent where they want to live because they need to test out where they want to live. And they find from a cash flow point of view, it's a lot easier to do that. So it's so to answer your question, is it accurate or an exaggeration? It's a bit of both. It's I think we just haven't seen the property market settle yet. And while we've still got an undersupply of property, then that causes an issue. Funnily enough, there are pockets around the country in our major capital cities where there is an oversupply of property, where rents are drastically coming down. We saw one recently in the western suburbs of Melbourne, where there was over 100 properties on the market that were comparable to each other in the one suburb.
Wow.
Yes, which we would, as a business, if there's any more than about 20 properties on a market that are comparable to each other in one particular suburb, then we class that as being an oversupply. So in this particular suburb, there was 5 times that amount. And rents had to be reduced by over 20% to even get some interest on the property. So it's there are opportunities, and people might need to look outside, and people are looking outside where they currently live and looking at outside of how they're currently working to be able to make the cash flow better. So a lot of people focus on just earning more so that they can keep living the way they have been or living where they currently are, even though prices are going up. So that's not always the solution.
We are about to have an election, and that election may result in a hung parliament. So, I mean, I want you to imagine a scenario in which the Greens hold the balance of power. Could you foresee a situation in which they offer their support to Labor in return for Labor introducing a rental freeze or rent controls?
Oh, that would be horrendous. It would wreak havoc on the property market and the rental market. We've seen it happen before when there's been major changes to the rental market and how it gets taxed and how it gets. You can make small incremental changes, but if you make blanket changes like this, it's of what their policies are talking about. It'll be horrendous. There'll be it'll cause a lot of homelessness. There'll be a huge shortage on top of what we've already got. So no, we need some real policies from people who actually know what they're talking about and know how to use market forces to be able to fix the problem in the first place.
Well, things are going to be very interesting over the next 2 months. We'll see how things settle. But in the meantime, Owen, thank you as always for the great conversation.
No worries. Thanks, Nick.